Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to the FloTrack podcast. I am Kevin Sully. He is Gordon Mack. FloTrack podcast at gmail.com is our email address. Subscribe to the FloTrack podcast YouTube channel. Over on the FloTrack YouTube channel, you can find all of the ranking shows that have been coming out this week, in addition to some race breakdowns. We have a very packed show today. Gordon, how are you doing?
Doing good. Excited for, I think this is officially the first weekend of the 2022 track season. We've had a few, the Boston meet back in December. We had a cross country meet in last week. But in reality, the real season starts today, tomorrow, and Sunday. I'm excited. We're going to have basically track and road racing for the next 40 weeks or so, 40 to 45 weeks. So I'm excited.
Good. We don't need to make up topics anymore. We don't need to come up with stuff out of the blue and be like, hey, top 5 Sixers quarter milers of all time. Go. We don't need to do that.
I was listening to a Sixers podcast, it's called The Rights to Ricky Sanchez. Great podcast. And a emailer emailed in and picked like the 5 slowest Sixers on the team. The team is notorious for being slow, and then had them debate what would their finish order be in a 100-meter dash. And it made me think about it. I was like, okay, because
were you the
you would
emailer?
think like 100-meter dash for a basketball player might be kind of far because they're not used to running that far. And I was like, yeah. So
it's very far. You said there's a surprise person running tonight indoors that you wanted to tell everybody about. You want to do that now, or do you want to wait?
I mean, I could do it now, and you may want to talk about it first. I know we have the breaking news with the doping FBI situation, but we'll start at the top. Can you guess who is running? Notable athlete who is running their season debut tonight, and the meet is on the East Coast. And
Usain Bolt.
It's in no. I'll give you a closer heat. The meet is in Kentucky.
Oh, wait a minute. Christian Coleman?
Correct. Can you guess what event he's running?
200.
300.
Nice. Love it. Love it. Okay, so Milrose won't be it'll be his first 60, but it won't be his first track race. So he preserves the first 60, but he's not going to go into that race rusty. So he'll jump into a 300. Good find, Gordon.
What do you think Christian Coleman can run a 300 in?
I don't know what anybody can run a 300 in because I don't have the times of 300s oriented in my brain. It's somewhere between 20 seconds and 45 seconds. Seems like it would be a good time in the 300. I'm not sure. It's been a while since we've seen a 200, really, like a serious 200 from him.
I'm going to look up what is the all-time 300s in U.S. history indoors.
This is a sentence that does not get me excited about indoor season. What are the all-time?
Okay, Noah Lyles has run 31.87. That's number 1. And then number 10 all-time is 32.46. So
I'm looking at his
31.87 to 30. He's probably going to run like 33 low. What do you think?
First race since February of 2020, but I assume he's been getting sharp, getting ready for Milrose. The longer stuff, the last 200 he ran, Gordon, was 2019, July 2019. So he did run a couple there, but nothing. He's been obviously way more 160 heavy since he became a pro. I mean, he ran. I remember he ran the 200 at USA's in 2019, made the team, and then scratched out of it for Doha just to focus on the 100. But primarily, the focus has been way more on the 100. So, yeah, get a chance to see him in the 300, 33.26 there. Time to beat. Does he beat that?
College. That's what? 6 years ago?
Yeah. Does he do it? Does his 300-meter
5 years
PR
ago.
go down tonight?
I don't know. I'm
2016.
excited though.
I think we're going to see it. All right, let's get in the show. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the Boston Marathon men's field. We're going to preview the Houston marathon and half marathon where you will be. But let's start first with a release from the U.S. Department of Justice. Very serious way to start the show, Gordon. So we have the first person being charged under this Rodchenko Act, which came into effect in 2020, which assigned prison sentences for people, non athletes, who were part of a doping operation. And the Department of Justice released a statement a few days ago that they're charging Eric Lira with distributing multiple performance enhancing drugs in an effort to corrupt the 2020 Olympics. And it focuses on two athletes here, and in the release, it's listed as athlete number one and athlete number two. Now, you do not need to be an expert with Google to figure out that athlete number one, the identity is Blessing Okabare. Basically, gives all the information in terms of how she was disqualified in the midst of the meet, and then they release text messages. And in the text messages, there's times, very specific times that are mentioned there that obviously indicate that it is Okabare. Don't know on athlete two, so we'll wait on athlete two for a little bit. But first of all, what was your reaction to reading this? There's a whole 10-page PDF going into the investigation. It appears that by making this a criminal act and involving these bigger players, that it's going to have an impact in terms of punishments and enforcement of anti-doping regulations throughout the United States as it relates to these global competitions.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because when you think of the FBI, like we've never considered doping a crime in America, right? It was just cheating on a game. Like
Mhm,
you just it's a crime. It's a crime within the. It's a rule breaking. It's not an
mhm,
actual law breaking. There's a difference between breaking rules and breaking laws.
yeah,
Um, so it is kind of weird, like why, like the FBI involved with something like this. Um, I guess this is why they're doing it because I think people who are out there considering or currently doping,
mhm,
they see this and then they'll realize, oh shit, I don't know if I want to risk jail time. I'm willing to risk being banned from the sport and just retiring. But I'm not sure if I'm risking going to jail. Um,
well, this isn't
and
impacting athletes, though. This is just the athletes are exempt from this because I think the idea is they'll get their punishment within the course of their sport. This is targeting the
no,
people like Lyra who are providing the drugs.
yeah, well, I guess the accomplices of the
Yeah,
athletes
yes,
are
yeah,
going to be thinking, no, I don't want to do that. You
yeah,
figure it out on your own.
yeah,
So, um, yeah, it's just a unique term because we knew this was going to be a thing because they made this announcement a few years ago that they're going to start
yeah,
treating it as a crime, and now that we're seeing it in real life, it's like, all right, this is real. This is going to happen.
mhm,
It's going to keep happening. Like if this happens again, if there's another person who is caught with steroids or HGH or whatever, they're
mhm,
going to have to deal with it. It
mhm.
makes me think like, well, is like the FBI, not to get off topic here, but like, is the FBI going to look into like Shelby Houlihan and the Angelone thing? Like, figure out where, like, put an investigation into the burrito place or put an
Mhm,
investigation into her text messages to see
mhm,
if she actually was not getting it from a burrito and getting it from somewhere else? Like,
mhm.
is that going to start happening? Like, are these FBI investigations started for every positive doping case that has been going up for the past 12 months, 16 months?
What well, I think what it does provide, though, is if someone does test positive, I think they're gonna wanna at least have a conversation with them and find out where they're getting it. Because the goal here, it's not you don't want the low level people, the people just using it, you wanna figure out how vast it goes. And the reason it's a law, it's kind of interesting in the PDF. They trace it back because like basically they're saying it's defrauding the public because it's got to be this global event. And then it also has to be a global event, it said, where there's like US sponsorship money involved, right? So they're basically saying the people who are providing drugs are corrupting this competition that you and these sponsors have invested in. And that's how they're able to write this law. So I don't know to what level of detail it's going to go to, but when I first read it and I read the brief before I went into the PDF, I thought, okay, well, she tests positive, then she gives up the information. But it's much deeper than that because it involves another athlete whose um, property was photographed by individual one who we don't know who that is. And then that information had the defendant's name on it. So it was going on before there was even a positive test. There was an investigation going on much, much deeper than that. I had two big takeaways, though, from it, Gordon. One, this is a real confirmation of why the whereabouts system needs to come into place. Because if you look at, even the text messages that she sent to Lyra here, and she mentions taking an amount of a banned substance, and hey, am I okay to test? And he replied, yeah, it's a low dosage. But then the response was, I wasn't sure, so I didn't take a test. I just let them go, so it will be a missed test. So yes, there are oftentimes valid reasons for people to miss tests. People are human beings, people make mistakes. But that sentence right there is exhibit A for AIU and everybody in the anti doping world for why the whereabouts system needs to be in place, why it forever will be there. And maybe because of this, they'll even tighten it. They'll say, hey, look, this is a person who clearly was, we have the evidence that they were clearly using PEDs, and now we are going to go from 3 down to 2. I'm not sure, but at the very least, you understand where that system comes from. The second thing that I thought was interesting was a lot of times there's so much ambiguity in these cases around anti-doping because it's just missed tests and we don't have a positive test, because the substance could be cross-contamination, because someone claims they didn't know and they just got it from their trainer or their manager. This is about as clear as you're going to get with the substances that were used. You have the substances of EPO, HGH. Everybody knows that. You have the clear mistest, and you have the text messages, which remove any doubt that they knew what they were putting in their body. You add into it all the packages with the needles and everything. I mean, this is as clear as I think you're ever going to get in 2022 in the modern era of knowing what's going on with the doping case. So for all the ones where we don't have a clue and we're like, I'm not sure, this is a 180 on that, because what they've laid out in this document is, it connects every single dot pretty clearly here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of smoking guns. Like the gun is so smoking, it's literally on fire,
Mhm.
and there's no like if ands about or this case would be this the appeals case of this would be thrown out before they even get to say their first word because say you see this text message.
Yeah,
Hola,
yeah,
amigo. Eric, my body feels so good. I just ran 10:63 in the 100-meter on Friday with a 2.7 win. I am so happy. Eric, whatever you did is working so well.
mhm.
Eric being the guy who supplied her with EPO. So you can't really get around that. Now,
Well,
the
and then
question,
after hold on, after the test though, after the positive test, she sent another message to him, um, that says, "Call me urgently. They said one of my results came out positive on HGH. I don't understand." So yeah, before, during, after, all the connections to this gentleman are there. I would have liked to see if he replied, or was it just like the
and
empty text bubble?
that phrase, call me urgently, I don't understand, makes me think that a lot of this anti doping, like people who supply it, communicate it to the athletes, it's all communicated to the athletes as, oh, don't worry, this won't be
Yeah,
caught. Oh, don't
yeah,
worry, this is a gray area, or don't worry,
yeah,
this is fine. Because I don't, she said, I don't understand how they found HGH into my system when I've been taking HGH for the season. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
kind of like a delusion that you had in your brain. Like, how can you say that sentence out loud? I don't understand how they caught me with HGH. Well, you were
Mhm.
taking HGH. That's how they
Yeah,
caught you. So,
yeah. Well, and even even she's at the Olympics, I believe, and she says in Slovakia, leaving for Tokyo on Saturday. Any final word, doctor? I know we can't do much at this moment. So she's basically saying, can't put any more banned substances in my body, otherwise this is going to come up with a positive test. And then he said, what you did is going to help you for the upcoming events. You are doing your part and you'll be ready to dominate. So yeah, I'm guessing she thought, hey, it should have cleared the system. And maybe, and this is the part where, hey, could they have potentially gotten away with this is just if he was better at managing the doses, right? Now, there's the second part of the investigation where they have photographs of the physical doping material in athlete two's residence, and it links back to athlete one. So there was that part of it. So they didn't really necessarily need the positive test, but that's what pushes it over the top.
So let's get to that. Everyone, when we see this report, we knew athlete one, we knew Blessing Okabare test positive, she's out. We knew that. The fact that this involved the second person, the second athlete, and we know the
Mhm.
following about this athlete based off of the report. We know athlete two is a male. We know
Mhm.
athlete two was in the Jacksonville area, was basically residents in the Jacksonville area. We know athlete two likely trained under Raina Ryder of the Tumbleweed Track Club. And also, athlete two was dealing with a hamstring injury in June.
Mhm.
So let's break it down. First things, we can, there are how many people in the world? Billions, right? There's what? How many billion people?
I
A
didn't know
lot.
that's where you were
Well,
going to go with
well,
this. You're really
we can
going
cut
big
that
picture.
number. We can cut that number in half, right?
Okay.
Because we know it's a male. Okay.
Gotcha.
Then we can
Okay.
cut that number to the state of Florida, which is like,
Right.
you know,
Right.
10, 15 million people. Cut that in half. Then we can cut it in half to the city of Jacksonville.
Mhm.
Then we can cut it in half to people who are coached by Raina Ryder. And this is where the big drop comes. So here are the men who are coached by Raina Ryder. Now, I'm not trying to imply that all these men are doping because there is no connection to that. All it is that one of them is, doesn't mean everyone else is. But when you see the names on the list that are coached by Raina Ryder, you're like, you start, whoa, right? So you're
Some
like,
big
who is the
names.
person of these? They're big
Yeah.
names. And, you know, hopefully one of the bigger the name, the less likely they are to dope. You would hope it's the lesser the name and the ones that are doping, but you never know, right? So we have Andre DeGrasse, who we all know, Trayvon Burmel, who we all know, Omar McLeod, we all know, Divine Odeduru, who's Nigerian, same as Blessing Okabare, who we all know, great NCAA athlete, second or third year, 2 or 3 years removed from college. Adam Gamelli from Great Britain, and Taekwondo Tracy, Jamaican national champion in the 100. Now, there's connections for everyone, right? There's connections with Divine Ododuru because he's Nigerian, and so is Blessing Okabare. There's
Mhm.
connections with Adam Gamelli and Taekwondo Tracy because both of those men dealt with hamstring injuries at the Olympics, right? The connection with Omar, Trayvon, and Andre, I don't really know what that would be. Um, so
I mean,
it's less likely them. I'm not
yeah.
accusing any of these six athletes, but it's one of them, right? It has to be, right? It has to be one of them that is athlete two who
Well, and if you're not
was
that
involved
athlete,
in this situation.
you want the name to come up because you don't
Yeah,
want any suspicion around you as well. And I expect that we will find out who that is because I'm guessing there's cooperation here between the Department of Justice and AIU. And the amount of information that was gathered at this athlete's residence is damning, to say the least. And there are photographs of all these um, banned materials. The hamstring injury kind of trips me up a little bit though, because that could be anybody. Like sprinters have hamstring injuries, and maybe
true.
some are public and maybe some aren't public. So I'm hesitant to read too much into that. I think an interesting fact, and listen, I don't think we should do this on the show because again, we'll figure out eventually. But people can get on a Reddit message board and put do the whole Always Sunny in Philadelphia corkboard and stuff. But the thing is it says on or about July 12th and 13th, individual one, who we also don't know, who I'd be interested in knowing who that is, at the request of athlete two, who was then outside the United States, entered a residence in the vicinity of Jacksonville, Florida. So this person would be out of the United States um, on July 12th and 13th. That's the
July
other.
12th and 13th. So,
That's the
do
other
we
one.
have any
So
results of July 12th and 13th in the US?
you would have to dig into that. I did not go that far. But that would be something where a person, who's not athlete too would probably want to raise that bit of information as counter programming and or counter narrative and say, hey, listen, it's not me. I was outside the United States. I mean, do you think there's any way we get to the beginning of outdoor season and they haven't figured out who this is and they haven't reported it?
I don't wait, okay, hold on. So you're saying that in order to be um a a suspect, you had to been outside the country on July 12th and 13th, or you had
So
to be inside the country.
according to the release, I'll read it again. On or about July 12th or 13th, individual one at the request of athlete two, who was then outside the United States. So if they were if they were in the United States, let's just say this: if they were in the United States on July 12th and 13th, then that's support for them not being athlete number two, right? Because they would have been in the residence. Because the individual one helped them gather some belongings and move them to a storage facility, according to this. So
Okay, so thinking about July 12th and 13th, that is during the Monaco and the Gateshead Diamond Leagues. Gateshead
right. So
Diamond League was the
again,
13th.
yeah, yeah,
So a lot of these guys were at
yeah,
either of those meets.
yeah.
So it doesn't really narrow it down too much.
Yeah, so same thing with the hamstring injury. It's like how are you gonna possibly interpret that because it's gonna probably involve multiple people. So, I think we'll be able to find out soon enough. I think even something might leak as well too. I mean, far more secretive stuff has leaked out in the past, but we'll find out. I mean, certainly it's from an anti-doping perspective, I'm sure they're glad that this is out there. This is real jail time too that this guy's facing. And I wonder, is there somebody above him on the ladder too? Right. And I mean, because this could potentially go into other sports as well. This could be just the tip of the iceberg here too. I don't know where he was in terms of stature. I know he professed to be a kinesiologist and, had homeopathic medicine in El Paso, but maybe there's another connection there as well. We shall see. Any last words before we go to Boston?
Um, I'm I'm looking up. So pretty much every athlete was close was realistically out of the country during this time. Pretty much
Mhm.
every athlete. So we don't really
Yeah.
narrow it down based off of that little tidbit because everyone was out of the country during mid July to run European races.
Mhm. The mystery of
So
athlete two lives on. We shall see. All right, ready to go to Boston?
one athlete that wasn't though, you could argue technically maybe no, the Jamaican athlete ran at the American Track League on July 18th
Mhm.
and likely was probably in the country. So you might be able to remove him, but again, we don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know
I don't want
travel
to
plans.
accuse or unaccuse anyone. So
Mhm.
let the
It's
people
wild.
figure it out on the internet. We should put up a poll. Should we make a poll? Who do you guys think is athlete two?
You know, no,
Athlete two poll? Can we
let's
do a
not do
power
that.
ranking?
That's not.
Like
I want to know
most
individual one. I want to know individual one. I'm more interested in individual one. The much that your method for narrowing down out of all the people on the globe would be much tougher with individual one because it doesn't say where they live, or if they're a man or a woman. So you really start with 7 billion people, and you got to work your way down from there. Shall we go to
thank you,
Boston?
Russell, but Adam Jamelli. I said his name wrong. I said Gamelli. It's Jamelli. So
Well, they said
appreciate
Jamili
that.
in
Oh,
Britain.
Jamili.
Jamili could just
Jamili.
be the difference in accents. Oh, speaking of the chat, Tom asks, will Kevin's Kings get priority when you open up calls? Live call. Yes. Kevin's Kings will go first, then Gordon's people. If you're a member, will go after that. So, but if you got to represent me well, so call in with something good. That's all I ask. And then say, I'll hang up and listen at the end because I've always wanted to be on a show that says that. It'll make my dream come true. Judson asks, what a waste of resources. Seriously, the FBI. And then David says, in my opinion, doping became a financial crime when track became a professional sport. A doped winner, especially in the Olympics, takes away an opportunity to make a living to non-medals. Getting a medal months down the road never makes up for the potential earnings a real-time medal could have earned. All right, we'll move on. Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, it is a financial crime in a way. Yeah, you're stealing money
Yeah.
from someone else.
Well, and I encourage people to read the full 10-pager about the Rodchenkov Act and like how they define a major international sports competition is interesting because this only applies for major international sports competitions. It applies to non-athletes, and part of the reason, like I'm mentioning, is it's saying um, like that major international sports competition has to be. It says the competition organizer or sanctioning body receives compensation for the rights to broadcast the competition in the United States. So they're really establishing like you have caused injury to a company or an entity in the United States. Um, so, I mean, there's a bunch of different categories it could fall into. If it's governed by the anti-doping rules, um, that's one of the criteria that it needs to meet. But basically, if it has financial support from somebody that does business in the United States, then it's eligible, right? So if your title sponsor is Coca-Cola, right, that would be you're saying that by defrauding that competition, you're doing harm to to the people involved, and you can be subject to this act. So, yeah, this is like a big one to come out of the gate with. Like, this is a very high profile way to use the Rodchenkov Act. And I going back to your earlier, I wonder if it will have an impact on people. Now, no law stops all crime. We know that because we exist in society. But, but I mean, this is serious jail time. And again, I think he's going to be incentivized to talk if he has more information about other people. So we'll see where it leads. What do you think on Boston men's field?
Bekele.
It's loaded. Yeah, yeah. Go through the highlights for me.
I mean, Bekele, Lisa DeSesse. DeSesse? Did I say it right?
CISA.
DeSesse? Camamore. Camor.
Okay, maybe
You
I'll do
should
this.
not have
I'm
put
gonna do
me on
this.
this
All
job.
right,
I am
here we
bad
go.
with names. Jeffrey Camoro. No, I'm
Travis,
not.
Travis, stop the
Karui.
clip. Travis, stop the clip. Let's
Stop. Yeah.
restart it.
Yuki, the Japanese dude who runs all the time. I'm not
Oh,
going to do this. You need to say the names. I'm not good
here we
with
go.
these names.
Here
Toronto.
we go. Are you gonna stop and let me do it? Or are you just gonna keep going?
I'm going to let you do it. Who's running?
All right. Boston Marathon, men's field, just like the women's, it's loaded. You have 7 of the last 8 champions of this race. And you also throw in Kenenisa Bekele making his Boston debut, Jeffrey Camore making his Boston debut, and for the United States, Colin Benny, Elkanah Kebet, Scott Fauble, Jake Riley, Jared Ward, CJ Albertson. It's going to be a incredible race. Boston is benefiting, just like on the women's side of things with the men, from the fact that they don't have to compete with the London Marathon. Obviously, we don't know what Kipchoge is going to do because this was the only spring marathon. But outside of Kipchoge, you have so many big names in this race. It's going to be sensational, just like the women's side of things.
Yeah. Once again, I mean, the people who probably would have gone to London are just coming here to Boston
Mm-hmm.
because it's the only race in town or in the world. I mean, there's other
Yeah.
races in the world, but you know what I mean. Um, yeah. I guess the one name I was thinking potentially could have been on it was Galen Rupp.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we see it's a
Mm-hmm.
Molly and Sarah on the women's side who are running world championships. They're running Boston. So you would
Yeah.
think that maybe Galen could do the same thing, but Galen, has that connection to one. He does the Boston Chicago back and forth, so it's like one of his go-to places. But looks like he's deciding to. I mean, maybe he wants to. I don't know why he would do. Maybe he's going to
Yeah.
focus and run on like go to Prague or something like that and try to run a fast time. Maybe that's his goal because you're
Yeah.
not going to get a fast time at Boston. So maybe he wants to use the spring marathon season to find a fast race. Um, but that was the only name that I saw notably missing. But everyone
Yeah.
else, it's like, yeah. And obviously, we always want a Kipchoge, but we still have to wait another season or two before we get Kipchoge running here in the U.S.
He's got to wait until he's done every other marathon and accomplished everything else before he comes to the Boston Marathon or New York Marathons of the world. I'm excited for it. It's got a lot of star power here. Someone like Titus Akiru, who he DNF'd in London, but he ran sub 203 last year. You have Chirono, who's a defending champion, who I think's other than Kipchoge. I think if we didn't have Kipchoge, I think Lawrence Chirono would be number one ranked marathoner in the world right now. I want to throw a trivia question at you though, Gordon.
I'm not going to get it right.
I think you
Just
could.
telling you right now.
I think you
I
could.
don't know.
As I mentioned, this race has 7 of the last 8 champions. Which one is missing?
I am not typing on Wikipedia right now. I'm totally not.
It's an
Where is a
obvious
list of
answer.
champions?
It's an obvious answer. I would not ask you this if it was a person who we don't know very well. And I kicked myself when I realized what the right answer was because I looked it up.
Uh, I don't know.
Meb.
Oh, Meb. Yeah, Meb. Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Meb was within the
Which
past 8 years. That makes sense.
Meb's around. Meb should run it.
He should.
Make it
Yeah.
8 for 8. Make it 8 for 8. That'd be cool. Uh, yeah. So this is gonna be terrific. I think this is gonna be, I mean, a Boston we remember on both sides. That American field is pretty cool as well too. And Benny, I'm interested to see what he does after how well he's been running recently. Cabet, top American in New York. Fauble, Riley, Ward, obviously very experienced. Albertson made it really interesting in the fall. Boston, it'll be great. It'll be great. Okay, what are you gonna talk about now? Oh, Houston. You're gonna be in Houston. Tell us about Houston. You want to talk
I'm
about
going to
Houston?
Houston.
Can you do a Houston preview for us?
Dude, I could do the greatest Houston. Oh, you don't even want to. My Houston preview? Whew. I
Okay,
don't know
let
if
me
you can
hear it.
handle it.
Let me hear it.
Can handle my
I'm
Houston
gonna lean
preview.
back and just go. Go, go, go.
Really, this is what happened. Okay, first of all, I got to figure out who's running the race by bringing up the start list. Um,
Oh my
this
gosh.
marks, for those who don't know, it's the 50th anniversary of the Chevron Houston Marathon.
You're just reading the
Chevron,
headline.
great,
You're reading the
great
headline.
sponsor. All right, no. All right, so let's start. I think from American perspective, I think the one athlete we're most kind of keeping our eyes on to see how she's going to do is Kira D'Amato.
Mhm,
She is, you know, in her prime, which is kind of crazy because it's late in her career, but because she started so late, her prime is now. She's run
yeah.
222. She's going to be in contention to win it. Um,
Mhm,
and there have been talks about American record attempts. I mean, Houston's a flat course. The
mhm,
weather is going to be pretty good. It's going to be early in the morning. I mean, it could happen. And that's going to be wild if someone who could barely break 3 hours 5 years ago is now on the
mhm,
verge of potentially running an all time US mark.
mhm,
So I'm really excited to see what D'Amato does in this race. Uh, there's some fast Ethiopians who are going to be with her.
mhm,
I'm not going to bother saying their names because I'm really bad, but they've all run 222 as well. So she's going to have people around her at this pace. She's not going to be super solo, which is something that you kind of don't want when you're trying to go for a record. And then I think on the women's marathon side, that's going to be the main story is basically
yeah,
Kira D'Amato versus the clock. On the
yeah.
men's marathon side, um, it's not as name heavy. You kind of are like, all right. I mean,
Mhm,
I'm kind of interested to see what Frank Laura does. He notoriously was trying to break the American record in the half marathon a few months ago. See what he can do. Can he? It's all whenever an American debuts, you always be like, maybe this is the guy. Maybe this is the one,
Yeah.
right? We're always looking for that next big marathon star on the men's side. So whenever you see a debut, you kind of keep an eye on it. Be like, all right, is his debut going to be a 212 or is his debut going to be a 209? And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So you kind of want to see how that plays out. Um, but the outside Kier D'Amato in the full and kind of keeping an eye on a solid marathon field on the men's side. The half marathon is where you have a lot of big names, a lot of these people who are running this half to kind of prepare for the treks for a 10K season or prepare
Mhm.
for Boston Marathon or just
Right.
prepare for whatever marathon they try to decide to do in the spring. Um, we got some, I'll start on the men's side. Three guys who've broken an hour already, all from East Africa. Uh, on the U.S. side, you have athletes like Reed Fisher, Reed Buchanan, Colin McCow, Matt Yano, Harvey Nelson, Brogan Austin, um, Lowy Lalang, Scott Fauble, John
Mhm.
Dressel's making a debut. Kirabella Rasa, who's been on the track lately, is making a debut. So excited to see
Yeah.
what those guys do. Pat Tiernan, NCAA star for Villanova from Australia. He's run 101. He could probably be in the mix and potentially get close to a hour flat time. Um, yeah, I mean, I think this is always fast, right? People got Nike shoes on as well, or carbon plated fiber plate shoes, whatever you call it. I don't know. Not just Nike shoes now. So we should see some PBs. You should see probably a surprise athlete that everyone knows. This is like all of a sudden runs like sub 61 or 60 low. And you're like, whoa, all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
How'd you do that? So that would be interesting. And then on the women's side, Sarah Hall's there.
Yeah.
She's the third seed. Sarah Hall, every time she runs on any road course, you gotta figure you gotta watch because you're like, all right, she might do something crazy like win the damn thing. So Sarah Hall, I'm excited to see what she does. Can she kind of lower her, not raise her name or lower her name on the top 10 all time half marathon list? Is it, I guess, raise your name on it? Um, and then there's some other
Move up.
people. Move up the list. That's it. Move up the list. Gwen Jorgensen is back for US. Um, you know, Fiona O'Keefe making a debut. Uh, Dom Scott's there. Sarah Pagano. Emily Durgan. Emily Durgan. She's the low key sleeper runner of 2022 in my opinion. Emily Durgan's there.
Mm.
So yeah, this was
All
kind of
right.
a wild about preview, but I did my best.
It was
Uh,
good. Really
I,
clippable.
the people who you're gonna care about: Sarah Hall in the half. You're gonna care about Pat Tiernan in the half. You're gonna care about Kira D'Amato in the full, and then you're gonna care about Frank Lara making his debut in the full. Those are my
Yeah.
top four. That's my Mount Rushmore of the 2022 Chevron Houston and full half marathon.
Full and half.
Yeah, full and
50th
half.
anniversary.
50th anniversary, of course.
The big 5-0. I think D'Amato can win this. She can
Oh
actually
yeah,
win this race because the top two seeds have PBs of 222, just like she does, Bisa and DeGafa. So I think it's possible that she can win this. And we know just from looking at her workouts from Strava that she's in good shape. American record, I don't know. I mean, that mark is going to fall at some point, and it may not fall from somebody who is a major marathon winner or someone who's been knocking on who's run 220 two times. They might just get the right day in the right pace group with the right conditions and get it. And we know obviously times around the world have been dropping, and I think that mark is going to come down soon. Will it be in Houston? I don't know, but I think that mark's going to go. Um Half, yeah, Hall will be interesting to see. Just like D'Amato, she could be in the mix for the win because that the half field doesn't have, a 65-minute woman in it. You got Chepgano at 107 and Ngui at 107, and then Hall right there. I want to ask you though, in the the men's full, when you're talking about Lara, yeah, 210 used to be the standard, but then as the shoes came out and people's times dropped, I'm talking about for the American men. What what would I guess we've had this question before, but like what would be like, okay, wow, he's a player on the scene. Because I don't if you go like 209.59, there's enough guys around there too to where you're like still in the crowd. What would separate him, do you think, from um other than the after Rupp group, basically?
209, sub 209.20. So 209 teens
I
or
guess my
faster.
question is this. I guess my question is this: what time would he need to know for you to have a lot of confidence that he's going to be a big part of the future of American marathoning?
209 teens. So 209.19 or faster.
Okay. Let me ask the question a third way and just see. No. Okay. 209. All right. I thought you were going to say
That's
faster. I thought you were going to say faster.
no,
So,
not
okay.
yeah. Well, there's a difference between 209.40 and 209.19, in my opinion.
About 21 seconds.
Yeah, but that's a big 21 seconds.
Okay.
That's almost a second a mile.
Yeah. No, you could be right. You could be right. I'm genuinely curious. I wasn't, it seemed like I was fishing for an answer. I wasn't fishing for an answer. I was genuinely curious because I almost want to say, yeah, mid to low 208s. Because you look at someone, and I don't know, was this in the shoe era when Leonard Career ran his fast one? Was that in the shoe era?
Maybe.
He ran 207.56 in 2019. Got 11th when he did it in Amsterdam. But I
Okay.
don't think, and I remember at the time saying, okay, clear number two to Rupp. And maybe even he's able to challenge Rupp. But that never happened.
I just got to consider it's a debut. He's
Yeah.
younger. Career had already been around the world many times on the track and in life. So I think Frank Lara, I shouldn't. I'm not going to expect him to run his 207 in race one. I'll
Yep.
expect him to run that in race number 5. So
Hmm.
I 209.19 is my number for a debut of a young guy.
Okay. I like it. And you're going to be there interviewing all the big players, getting
I'll
all
do
the
my
scoops.
best. Get all the scoops, multiple scoops. Here's the
There you go.
thing, though. Marathon starts at 7 a.m. Central Time. So let's imagine they all start right. That means they're done by what 9:20.
Hmm.
Take some time to recuperate, get up, whatever. Probably not interviewing them until like 9:45, maybe even 10 o'clock. Right. Here's the thing: the Eagles have a playoff game at noon, so that means I have to get this all done in that 2 hour period, and then I'm out. I gotta get to the bar and watch my Eagles get blown out by the Buccaneers. So I have to. It's
Yeah.
gonna be a busy Sunday for me, and my girlfriend's also running the race, so I have to be a cheerleader there. Got to
Hmm.
hand out the water
Lot of
bottles and all that stuff.
tasks.
So a lot of
She's running the
tasks.
half or the
She's running
full.
the half,
Okay.
half,
Well,
half, half,
how many water bottles are you going to hand out in a half?
half as many.
Okay. You're not actually handing out water bottles. We know that.
No, no.
So
I mean,
I wish
I'll
you,
I'll probably have one to hand at the finish line. But here you go. I kept it
is it a
warm
point to
for you.
point or is it loop?
No, it's a loop.
Okay. Do you have all your
Yeah.
spots picked out for where you're going to cheer?
I haven't figured it out yet. I'm not. Yeah, it's too early. It's only Friday. I got 48 hours to figure this one out.
Well, I wish you luck in doing
I have
that.
time.
I'll be rooting for your Eagles. As someone who cheers
Thank you.
against Tom Brady, I'll be rooting for your Eagles. I hope they are able to pull it off this weekend, and I hope you'll be able to get a lot of good interviews. There are a lot of great content for people.
I have some breaking news for you.
Okay, is it about athlete
And
two?
no, it's not athlete two. Isaiah Harris has signed with Brooks Beast.
Oh wow,
Yeah. Jordan, Ribbich, and Kerr. Devin Dixon's there. A few others.
Devin Dixon's there.
Devin Dixon's there, and Brandon Kidder, obviously. But yeah,
Oh
it
wow,
looks like Brooks Beast is becoming like Penn State U, right? If you are a great mid distance Penn State athlete. They got Kaz Loxam, Brandon Kidder, and now Isaiah Harris.
Man, I'm also. I mean, Dixon he had that run at Texas A&M where he was so good,
Yeah,
so good,
pre-pandemic.
and then Hopple got him a couple times, and I think we were like, oh man, Dixon underperformed. And based on how he'd run earlier in the year, we thought he could go faster. But then Hopple was just freaking good, which is what we learned
Yeah,
later on. So
top three in the world. Good.
yeah, I've always wondered that. So wow, that's you haven't really seen that many concentrated signings recently
Yeah,
of like bigger name people. So man, so Isaiah Harris is going to go from State College to Seattle.
trip.
That's a that's a big move. Well, and he's from Maine. He's from Maine too. That's a really long
Was
trip.
I don't think he's like.
I
I think
mean,
he's
I
gonna be.
know
I don't. It's.
I'm
I
not
don't think he's
worried. I'm not worried
commuting to
about it.
track
No.
practice in Seattle. It's not like he
I'm
gets on a 4-hour flight every morning to go to do a tempo run and then come back. I don't think that's
I'm
what
just
he.
saying it's a big shift. It's a big shift. People, gravitate usually back towards home because of familiarity, and he's striking out on his own. So,
Let's take a look at the 800-meter field in the U.S. right now. So last year, I'm looking at. Let's look at outdoor. Like, where do you think Isaiah Harris right now is in the world? Right. So Clayton Murphy ran 143. Isaiah Jewett 143. Bryce Hoppel 144. Donovan Brazier ran 145, but obviously was hurt. And then Isaiah
yeah.
Harris was a 144. So Harris is, you know, the fourth, is either going to finish third, fourth, or fifth, I think, at the U.S. trials in June,
Mhm.
right? Because he's
I don't
he's in
know.
the he's going to make the final. I think Isaiah Harris's
I mean, he gets
success is
second.
really going to be based off of how good Donovan Brazier decides to be. Like, is he 100%? If Donovan's
I get
100%,
what you're saying.
then
I get what you're saying.
it becomes
You're saying
a two-person slot, right? So,
you're saying he's solid. He's consistent and solid, and he's going to be in that 3-4-5 range if Brazier returns to Brazierness and Hopple or Murphy, run as they're capable of.
oh, and I realized Brazier has the bye, so you don't even have to
Yes.
worry about him. So
Yep.
he's
Yep.
basically has to beat out one of Jewett, Hopple, Murphy, Brandon Miller.
This is the year.
You know,
This is the year for the
this
men's
is yeah,
800. Yeah.
yeah.
So the Beasts have Kidder, Harris, Dixon, Kerr, among
That is a hell
others.
of a DMR.
That's what I'm
Hell of a
saying.
DMR.
Are we gonna play the DMR game again? Usually the DMR game's kind of lame, but like, you got the Pete Julian group, newly named Union Athletics Club, lining up with they got Charlie Hunter now and Engels and Brazier. I guess would they
I think
need
I would take the Beast DMR over the Union Athletics DMR. Let's play it out right now. Beast would lead off with Kidder, right?
yeah,
Who would Union Athletics lead
Dixon.
off with?
Oh,
Dixon.
yeah.
No. Who
No, I'm doing Beast would go Kidder to Dixon to Harris to Kerr. And Dixon
Yeah,
is a legit elite 400-meter runner, which a lot of these other
exactly.
groups don't have. So Union would go. Hold on, do they have a fourth guy?
Yeah, who would
Let
the
me,
fourth guy be?
hold on. Let me get the roster up here. They have one, two, three. They only have three guys on their team. Disqualified. I don't know. They could have Raven Rogers run. Could they borrow somebody? They got to be able to have somebody sub in. So I mean, you'd put you'd put Engels on the mile. I think you'd put Brazier on the 12, and you'd put Charlie Hunter on the 8. That's what you would do.
Yeah, so Brazier would probably beat Kidder. Kerr would beat Angles. And then Hunter and Isaiah Harris, I would feel like would be a wash.
Okay. Then you
and
have
then
Bowerman. So Bowerman runs. I think you're
Bowerman. No,
open.
they don't have any shot.
You got Centro. You got Josh
Yeah,
Thompson.
but
You
they
got
can't run
McGordy.
fast eight. They can't run
I
fast
think.
eights and 1200s.
I,
Come on.
I think you put. It comes down to the mile, Gordon. You ever watched the
I
DMR?
know. I have watched the DMR.
I think you put
But yeah,
Bartlesmeyer. You
no.
go. You go. I mean, McGordy's run 335.
Yeah, but I feel like all these guys' 800 speed is like 148, 147. When you're going up against 144 speed, it's very different.
Well, I know, but maybe they need to. Maybe they need to just shift the training a little bit. I'm trying to get more teams in this meet.
This
So
meet
you
that we're
go.
creating,
I mean, Lamong back in the day ran to get 800. Maybe bring him back.
that's
I think
true.
I think B Bowerman could put together a noteworthy team. Again, I wouldn't pick them to win, but I mean, you have Centro and Thompson, and I don't mean like Fisher off strength could run like a pretty good 1200 leg, and then maybe you could shift. Maybe you could shift. I mean, you could maybe shift one of those milers down to the 8 or something like that to do it.
Yeah.
All right, who else is in the meet? Is the On Athletics Club in the meet?
On Athletics, yeah. I mean, they got Klecker. You can run probably a good mile.
Emish,
No, well,
Hoare.
no, they are. Well, Beamish and Horror you put Horror on the anchor, Beamish on the 12. Do they have an
You
eight?
have
No one. See, that's the thing. No one gets it. No one has a good 8-4. Beasts have the 8 and
Villarreal,
4 on lock. Villarreal, okay, Villarreal can run a good 8, but not great.
and then you
You run
make
a good.
Ritz. You make Ritz run the quarter.
Yes. Everyone. How about this? Everyone's coaches have to run the quarter.
Run the
Oh, that would be
okay.
great.
Yeah,
You get Ritz on the 4. You get Danny Mackey run the 4. You get Pete Julian run the 4. You
I'm
get
in.
Schumacher running the 4. That would be great. Oh, because that's like the equalizer.
What's another group? Is there another group out here we're not thinking of?
I mean, OTC, but I don't know who they have. Um, I don't know.
Let me look. Oregon. I mean, they got Nigel Amos. So
Yeah,
there's an 800-meter runner. If you want an 800-meter runner, there you go. You
they're
got
good. They're good there.
Blankenship, Hassan Mead, Will
No,
Paulson, Will Paulson,
no. They
Sietti,
got
Jake Hayward. Actually, no, they wouldn't be bad. Well, because you're basically saying the 800 matters a lot. So if you have a guy who's run 141, you put him in
true.
there, and then between Paulson, Sietti, Hayward, Blankenship, you can get the,
Who wins? Who wins a
the
400 between Mark Rowland, Pete Julian, Dathan Ritzenhein, and Danny Mackey? Who wins that 400? What's that order?
I think I'd
And how
go.
fast? Do any of them break 60?
I think, yeah, I think Ritz could still break 60. I just go on
Okay. Do
youth.
any of them break 55?
I'd
No,
go
no one breaks
Ritz.
55.
I'd go Ritz, Mackey, Roland,
Julian, Roland,
Schumacher. Yeah, yeah, Julian Roland Schumacher is what I would do.
Julian
All right,
Roland, Schumacher last. Schumacher last. Ooh,
we got a new
disrespect to the Bowerman Track Club.
we got another entry in here. The Cooper Tier Cole Hawker crew, because they have James West too.
Well, yeah. Well,
Does that count as a
that's
group? I think that counts as a group.
it
They're training
counts,
together.
but
They just need a
they
name.
would win. They would win. I mean, yeah. You put they that, and then who's? I guess the
Well, who's
Oregon
their
coach
800?
is running the 400.
Well, who's their 800 guy?
James West runs the 800.
Okay, but that's so you think they would be able to contend, but Bowerman couldn't? I think they would be good. Very nice track club in the mix. Hob Kessler, Nick Willis. Who they got?
Jason
Furlick.
Furlick.
Yeah.
They don't have 800. I don't see the 800. James West can run a good 800. I thought he ran like
I mean,
146 once. Maybe I'm wrong.
okay. I know, but I'm just telling you, like Nigel Amos is run 141. Yeah, West's on Tiefers it's 148, but that might not include everything.
No, never believed Tifers.
Um,
I don't know.
I, li- I live
I
by
just want to see the
Tifers.
coaches run a 400. That's what I want. We should put it at the end of the track at USA's.
I'm impressed that
And
the Beasts have this good of a squad here. This is impressive.
we
Class of
give them,
2022.
we tell them if your coach wins the 400,
Get a
they get
bonus.
to pick one of their athletes as a wild card entry into the US into the worlds.
All right, James West, 800 PB. Yeah, 148, man,
Okay,
on Tila.
you're right.
So I think they would contend though, but you still have. I'm not counting anybody's DMR team out because of an 800 leg. That's never been the case in all of human history. Oh, another entry, last entry, Notre Dame, because they have to be in
Notre
every
Dame
DMR. They just go in
or
every single
and
one.
Ole Miss, Notre Dame and Ole Miss.
Yeah, yeah. Newbury
Yeah,
Park.
and Newberry Park. Let's get them all. That would be great. The young,
The
current, and
old
old.
every.
Yeah,
Tom
we're
says
like
Tinman would struggle. Tom says, and then other Tom W says Mitchell Black can run 147 on Very Nice Track Club. So yeah, I think they get in. They get in.
yeah,
We need 12 teams. Like we'll go up to 12 teams. So I'm
yeah.
letting everybody in.
And it's on an indoor track, right?
Yeah.
Indoor. Okay. Live on FloTrack.
Always. Speaking of
How
live
much
on FloTrack,
money? How much money would it take to get this race to happen, and for them to try?
more than people pay
For
to
them
become
all to
members
get on
of
a
the FloTrack
plane,
podcast.
and go to a facility and not run any other race to like focus on this one. This is their one race. They're trying to run it all out.
Yeah.
Costs a lot of money. Mm,
Tom asks, now do podcast DMRs? Well, here's the thing. Every pro runner now has a podcast
yeah, so we lose.
because that's what's happening in every sport. All the athletes are doing podcasts, so we would get crushed. I mean, there's literally a podcast with Morgan McDonald, Oliver Hoare, and Jordy Beamish. So you'd know how that one would go.
If we were
Uh,
put together our DMR though,
no,
I guess Lincoln will be on our team. We'd bring him back from the grave.
no, we
And then
put
who's our fourth leg? We don't have a fourth leg.
no, we have Olivia run the quarter, so we have
Okay.
some respectability there with Olivia.
Put Olivia there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you'd run the 8. I'd run the 12 because I'd try to save face and hope it went tactical, and then put Lincoln on the mile. That's what we would do. Speaking of live on flow, the VA showcase is this weekend, so check that out. We got a cool 1K matchup brewing: Roisin Willis and Sophia Gararian. So check that out. I went over to Mile Split, checked out the top records that could fall. So they're both entered in the 1K, and then they're also gonna be in the 500. So going down in distance in the 500. So just a lot of fast high school action traditionally happens at the VA showcase. Some of the most famous records from years past have come from that meet if you're not familiar with it. So that'll be live on the site this weekend.
Yeah, and on the men's side, there's some pretty good athletes as well. Um, someone Justin Braun, who one of the faster sprinters in the country. He's going to be there running a 300. Um, in the I believe 2 mile. Reinhard
Mhm.
Harrison right now is scheduled to run in the 2 mile. He's I believe he's from Florida. He's signed with Oregon. He has an 8:47 seed time.
Mhm.
So 2 mile indoor, doesn't run that often because a lot of times I run the 3,200. But Reinhard
Mhm.
Harrison in that 2 mile should be an interesting race to watch.
Mhm. Check it all out this weekend, as Gordon says. First full weekend of indoor track and field. Anything else you want to mention before we go?
Now check out the site. Like you said, we do so many shows now. We got the FloTrack Rankings show. We have the FloTrack podcast. We have the NCAA Track and Field show. We have This Week in Track. We have race breakdowns and Workout Wednesdays. Soon we'll be coming back to the site.
Ooh,
And so, hey,
brand
check
new
those out.
ones. Brand new
We got a
ones
bunch.
produced by yours truly and the other guy on the side of this podcast. It's going to be high-level stuff. Some
And we'll
big
probably
name.
start bringing back Tasty Race of the Week and Kick of the Week because we got track now. We got track is back.
It's going to be awesome. Bring it all back. Bring back Fenton, Alex Lohr, just everything from the glory days. Send you to Europe all summer, Gordon.
Let's just go back to 2013 and 12 when life was a much simpler time, right?
Yeah, for sure. All right, FloTrackPodcast@gmail.com. Thank you to Colt for producing all week. Remember, we're trying live calls out next week, so stay tuned for that. Thanks to Travis. Have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy the track and field. We'll talk to you on Monday.